you so much for joining me on this podcast, on the first podcast of kind of Genghis Academy.
No worries.
We were talking offline about how kind of tricky it is to find podcasts that talk about gaming and product management together.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I thought this could be a really cool kind of first attempt at it. So thanks again. Kind of just wanted to open up for a sec in terms of just who you are and kind of getting the viewers kind of accustomed to what you do. And yeah, who is Anirudh?
Yeah, cool. So yeah, hi, I'm Anirudh. I go by Roo because that makes my life easier. I currently work as product manager for Trailmix Games, working on the game Love and Pies. I've been working there now for about 3 years, which is crazy long because it feels shorter than that, quite weirdly to say. And yeah, like coming from sort of like CRM community to product management is like my experience and my background. I've been doing that ever since kind of leaving university, going straight into games, and yeah, that's me in a nutshell right now.
Very cool. Thank you. So I guess first question is, did you ever think you'd end up working in games?
No. It's a really weird journey. So I always envisioned myself, essentially my university degrees and stuff were all related around science. So I've done like biochemistry, medical science, disease mechanisms, all that sort of stuff. And it in no way, in any shape or form, does it tie to gaming whatsoever. So yeah, not at all. It wasn't like the first thing that came into my head working into games. It was always, yeah, I'm going to go work in a lab and do some stuff like that. But in my master's year specifically, so the last year of my university degree, we had a coding course using RStudio, and it really piqued an interest of like, oh, cool, I like coding, this is fun, and I wonder what I could do with this. And still thinking at that point like, yeah, no, I'm probably still just going to work in a lab and maybe do some data stuff for labs and things like that. And then something popped up on LinkedIn that was like, hey, we're looking for a graduate CRM manager who is really good with data, who understands like some coding and things like that. And that's how I got into it, really. It literally paved a way. And I'm a gamer. I love games. I've played games all my life. And so from going from science to then going to gaming, I was like, how is this happening? I was like, this is crazy. And then, yeah, essentially games turned out to be a really good intersection for me between having to have some sort of creative aspect, which I really liked about games, and then also the kind of logical aspect of games.
Yeah, absolutely.
So no is the answer.
No is the answer. So my question is then, how does coding kind of translate into games? So you're working in kind of the biomedical science field, and
Yes.
then you kind of saw like what coding was, and you were interested in that. How does that then translate to like going into CRM and product?
Yeah, so the coding aspect from my side of the masters was obviously very related to bioinformatics. So taking like patient data and stuff like that and trying to figure out learnings and data analysis from those. It translates into gaming for me more with data is used widely, right? With a lot of gaming companies are data informed or data led. They use the data to find problems or understand problems or just understand the general player base and see what they can find out. So for me going into that, it was mainly used, especially for CRM, was specifically working on VIPs, players at the time in the company I worked at, and utilizing that to kind of go, oh, okay, what do we know about these people? What do they like doing? What's their coin balances? What's their progression throughout different things? Utilizing that was interesting at first because it was literally kind of building up a picture of player profiles and building up what our VIPs are. Do we have different types of VIPs, etc.?
And what are VIPs? Just for anyone who doesn't,
Yeah,
I know
so
very
I
important
mean,
person, but
yeah, that's the general definition. I won't delve too much in details of like what they are because obviously if any VIPs are watching, they might know. But then essentially it was tied to high spending players. So there were different tiers of high spending players, and whichever tier you fit into, depending on what the criteria was at the time, you'd either be like, I think it was VIP, deluxe, or elite, and that was what you'd then get fit into.
Got it. Yeah, I worked in mobile game development for a short period before joining my current role. And yeah, there's like whales, minnows, dolphins. Like there are lots of different ways of classifying these VIPs, I guess.
There's different ways of classifying them. I mean, recently there's a lot of articles about how using things like whales and minnows is not good anymore. So we have to find different ways of kind of branding the players in a sense, which sounds really weird to say, like we're branding them with something. But yeah, it's different ways of kind of determining what their profile is for you in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we talked offline again, like how product kind of fits into kind of game development. But I just want to ask you kind of big question here. What does product mean in game development for you?
Okay, so
it's a big one.
It's a big one. It's quite a mysterious concept because every time I talk to people about like, oh hey, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I work in games. And they're like, oh, you must be a game developer. I'm like, oh, actually no, I'm a product manager. And they're like, oh, what does that do? And then I have to sit there for about a good couple of minutes and go, what the fuck do I actually do? I don't know. No, I'm joking. But like, it's a mysterious role. People often contribute it to kind of like the evil monetization side of trying to grab
Mm.
money from everything. I mean, like in the past, I see that like maybe like 5, 10 years ago. But I think things are changing right now and it's going in a different direction. It's definitely shape shifting in a different way. I kind of like to think of it as a bridge between creativity and business goals, essentially. Take like creativity and reality, and like, you know, we take these big ideas that we have in games and go, okay, what player needs does that meet? What business goals does that meet? And then we kind of flip it around and put it into a direction and go, okay, this is the way we need to go. In game development specifically, I think for PMs, for products specifically, it's like crafting experiences that feel fun, and that's a big thing to say. But we also need to connect a lot of dots between things. So sure, like player experiences are the biggest thing that we think of, but we need to connect that between data, the design, the business goals, and the general team vibe, I suppose, as well. Of like, hey, we want to work on this or not. So, you know, we're kind of like the architects of everything. We have lots of hands in different pots. And you know, it is obviously working with the business to, you know, make something, well, kind of solving the logistical problems or the business value needs that we need to solve. But it's also having fun and kind of creating fun experiences for players. And I think that's where it's kind of going to at the moment. We need to think about things like the player psychology, economy, even just like how the narrative works in mobile games specifically. Like that is part of our role. But then obviously the flip side is the business side. So, you know, monetization, retention, ads, all that sort of stuff. So I think overall, I'm going to kind of use an analogy and say that we're kind of like therapists. You know how the therapists always go to you, you say something to them and go like, well, how does that make you feel? PMs are like, okay, cool. How does that work for us? What does that feel like for day 7 of a player? And how do we keep it working? So we just ask the questions, building on those questions and kind of getting people more to those answers that we want to see.
And I feel like this kind of blends into UX a bit, right? Because like a lot of product, when I got into product, I started as a UX designer because I saw it as kind of the way I looked at product management was you have a triangle, development at the top, development, business or C-suite, and then you have, of course, the kind of product side of it or design. And so I thought when I wanted to get into product, I'll start first in UX and kind of get an understanding of the customer and the empathy, and then work my way into product that way. Where does UX kind of fit in that spider web you just kind of crafted in terms of what a PM does?
UX is a big thing, right? Like without the user experience being good or the user UX flows of a feature, for example, being really good, there's no way in hope that people are going to engage with a feature like that. So, you know, in for me specifically, like we have UX designers who we work with constantly, who we go to them and go, hey, I've got this really cool idea. I want to try and do this. This is all the business goals, etc. Let's forget about that part. How do we make this work for our players? And it's then just, you know, using and utilizing their knowledge to go, okay, well, you know, from previous experience or player experience or just understanding our players, this is the best way that we can get around to doing things. And like it connects to product a lot because they're literally the architect of the feature you kind of come up with or you want to come up with. So by them coming up with these player flows and going, okay, this is what the Fatui, the first time user experience tutorial needs to be for this thing, and kind of helping me shape that and understand like, okay, this is how this feature will then work, and then this will happen next, and this will happen next, is a fundamental part of the kind of development process of a feature or whatever it is you're going to be working on. But yeah, it's like I said, it's a fundamental. It just needs to be there.
So adding to that, I imagine when I worked in mobile games, we did a lot of A/B testing, like basically essential to understand kind of what works, what metrics are you looking at? Are you looking at retention? Are you looking at day 1, day 2? How does A/B testing kind of, for the audience who maybe thinks, when I first came into product, I thought A/B testing was those things you see in like Mad Men where like everyone's behind like a glass screen and you have like 2 sets of audiences, everyone using the same thing, and there's one person. Or have you seen like Silicon Valley where there's like
no, I haven't actually.
Okay, well, there's a really funny scene where like he's obviously doing the user testing. He's getting everyone's thoughts on kind of the product. But anyway, I always saw it as like this very manually intensive thing. But how does A/B testing work in kind of mobile games or in your area?
Yeah, I mean, A/B testing to the player specific. Let's look from the player point of view, right? When we're A/B testing things, players are smart. They clock on. They know that if they're in a community and they're talking, someone's like, hey, I've got this cool new thing. And this person's like, well, I don't have it. That's rude. What's going on? So there's that thing too. So players know that we're testing things, and they understand that sometimes we do need to test things. But also the flip side is that they're upset that they haven't got the cool thing that someone else has. But for gaming specifically, so like obviously don't want to say ignoring the players side of things, but for mobile games, A/B testing is kind of like structured curiosity, I would say. It's asking our players when we're putting something in the game, which experience do you like best? And like that is important because we can't just rely on guesswork and go, I want to build this cool feature, I'm just going to put it live in the game and it's going to work. We don't know that. We need to understand what metrics it's moving, how it's impacting players. Do players like it? There's all these questions. So it's important to start A/B testing things, but it's also important to have like good hypothesis-driven testing. Right? But also keeping it player focused. The A/B test is meant to help us learn, not to just optimize to make it more monetizing or something like that. But it's also the flip side is like, yes, okay, something could be positive and we could learn it, but it also could be bad and we also learn something too. And like that is learning bad things is always a good thing as well. It sounds weird. It's counterintuitive saying that, but bad can be good and good is also good.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole point of product management, I think, to a large extent, is to learn what are the lessons here that we can then extract and then apply to future scenarios.
Yeah, and like context matters a lot in those situations, especially for A/B testing. The test itself should not inform the decision. Say something is really positive in terms of monetization, but players hate it, or like the socials are going crazy with people saying, "Oh, I really don't like this," and blah blah blah. That just because one aspect of it is saying yes, we should go live with this, doesn't mean we should ignore the other aspect. And that's a big thing I think we need to also understand about A/B testing in the industry is like it doesn't always have to be one thing you focus on, which is just the money or, you know, a core metric that you're trying to improve. It's all like it's all coming back to player experience. Like if your players don't like it and they're saying they don't like it and you put it live anyway, that just seems really silly to me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I guess at the end of the day, if you want to have a successful game, it goes without saying, it has to be fun. And for it to be fun,
for sure.
Then what kind of metrics would you be looking at specifically for those interested? Like, okay, I understand A/B testing. I see kind of how it use two different cohorts to analyze kind of behavior, and then you'd make a decision on kind of which kind of test is better, and then you'd make your application. What kind of metrics would you be looking at in terms of making this judgment?
It does definitely depend on the hypothesis, right? And the scenario that we're doing. If it's a monetization feature, then obviously monetization is the main thing you're going to look at, right? Like, for example, like battle passes, widely used throughout the industry, throughout games specifically, but it is a key monetization feature, right? So if you're not monetizing from that and that's your main hypothesis, then like that's not the main learning you're getting from. Just generally, what I tend to look for in features is yes, monetization is a big thing. Are we moving any needles on our ARPDAU? Are we moving needles on retention and just overall like kind of net revenue, so ad and IAPs together? If those kind of changes are happening, that's great. It's good to look at. Then it's more into the kind of secondary side of things is depending on your game, there's going to be different engagement metrics you would look at. So for Love and Pie specifically, it's things like energy spend, gem spend, completion rates of events. If it's specifically looking at an event, let's say we're looking at a short-term event, if people are engaging and there's a good completion rate of what we targeted when we've done economy balancing and stuff like that, then, you know, great that we're hitting those targets too. And if those don't align and we've got monetization but no engagement, or more engagement but no monetization, is then kind of going, okay, how do we find a middle ground between those two kind of main metrics? As much as I said earlier, you know, we're money grabbing, but we're not just money grabbing product managers. It is a big thing we look at, right? We are at the end of the day managing a product which manages a business and an industry itself. So if we're not hitting those targets, then, you know, we need to figure out why.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the tricky parts about product management is that at the end of the day, you are beholden to a business that has financial needs, but then you also want to satisfy players and make the game fun.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it's trying to find middle ground between that. And sometimes it's really hard, right? Sometimes you have to be just surely adamant and be like, no, this is a monetization thing. We need to get this going, et cetera, et cetera. But then at the same time, you sometimes feel bad and you're like, oh, I know people are going to hate us for doing so or whatever. But, you know, if you test it and it works and it's done what you needed to do, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing it.
Talk to me about the game economy. What does it mean for a mobile game to have an economy? I know this is a very large question, but
it is a loaded question.
What does it mean for game economy? Like we have obviously a real world economy and the stock market and finances and whatnot, but what about for a game where you have like gems and coins? How does that all relate?
Yeah, I mean it's essentially the same thing as a real economy, right? Like you either have inflate like let's just use an example of like you've inflated your economy, right? We've done a feature or something and we've given players loads of gems. Great. Players are feeling happy and they love it. They've got more bang for their buck. It's great. They've got lots to sit on and they've got lots to do and carry on their gameplay. For a player perspective, it's brilliant. They can do what they carry on doing more so than they usually would do. However, that can lead to other problems for us specifically. Like, for example, you've given them more gems. There's now this hangover period in the game. And this means the economy is tanking. People aren't spending money. They might not be doing more as they would because they're kind of like, yep, I'm fine. I can do whatever I want now. I don't have to rush, or there's no sense of urgency for me to finish this event, etc. And like that then can have a negative impact on the metrics for us as a business. So for game economy specifically, and I'm not a game economist, this is obviously a very confusing area for a game economy, and I pretend I try to know what I'm talking about here. But essentially, game economy is like real world economy. If we're not managing that economy in the game, we're going to have major problems inside of the business. Like if we do something too high, then people are going to not want to do things. If we do it too low, then people are going to complain. And there's this whole balance you need to maintain. So with game economy specifically, if you don't maintain that balance, you're going to have problems either way of what goes on. And that's the dumbed down product manager who knows very little about game economy to understand. But I know enough to kind of go, let's not create hangover periods.
Let's not create problems. Yeah, that's really what product is, though. Like I also kind of in my work, you have to know about a lot of things. You can't be an expert in everything because then you have exactly. those experts and those.
Yeah, I mean, like that's obviously a big thing with product as well. It's just like people think that we know a lot about every single aspect of the game and etc. It's not always the case. There are some things that some product managers are better at doing than others, and that's not something to be ashamed of or something to, feel bad about. I'm super duper not great at game economy, like I just said, but I'm great at, sorting out feature life cycles or going from like the initiation of an idea to the end of an idea and solving problems. We've all got different strengths in product, and I think that's one of the biggest things that people might see as like a misconception of the role, is that they know everything about product, but actually it's not. Like I'm still learning. Like I am still learning every day about different things that I would not have known about last week, so there's a lot of misconception around that we know everything. I can tell you that we do not.
Talk to me more about your strengths as a product manager.
Yeah, sure. I feel like I'm an interview now. So I mean, for me, like my biggest thing that I've noticed I'm really good at is the feature conception lifecycle, but also solving problems. So feature conception is great. We start with ideas, we look at data, we speak to designers, we go, okay, what are we solving as a problem? What does this bring us as a business? And that's really fun to talk about. And then there's the whole creative side of like, okay, what can we do next? What can we do to fix this problem? Like, let's do this fun event, or let's do this stamp card, or whatever it could be. And that's really exciting and it's really fun. And I think that strength is really good with me as a product manager, building those features. And it's a lot of what I've done at Trailmix as well, is building a lot of those features up. But then also the kind of problem solving side of things. We have to be creative problem solvers. So there might be situations where something's gone terribly wrong in the game, something's broken. That's when we have to get involved and go, okay, let's see what we can do to mitigate this problem. How do we fix it? When do we fix it? Etc. etc. And obviously a lot of that comes in conjunction with working with production too, so producers specifically. But I've definitely found that's where my biggest strengths are. Is like, crap, something's gone wrong. Let's go. Like focusing on the here and now. Really, really kind of like, it's just fun. It's just fun solving problems.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I teach a course kind of outside my work in product management. And one of the things I tell my students all the time is it's natural for human beings to be solution oriented. We see a problem and we think to the solution right away. And I think a key skill, not just in product, but I think in general, is just to be able to really understand what the problem is that you're dealing with. And then there's a fun to that when you kind of unpack it properly, you outline your options and think, okay, what makes sense for this situation?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like that's the thing, is what I found is fun about the problem solving side of things is just like jumping on it, utilizing all the experience around you to then help you make a decision. I'll speak to devs, QA, anybody else who needs to be involved and go, okay, what's the problem? How do we need to fix it if we have time? Let's pretend there's no time in the world and we have to fix it. What do we need to do? And what's the quickest way we can fix it so that if it's a live problem, it's a big thing to make sure that players aren't not getting into the game, because then obviously that has a whole crazy business impact that we have to then deal with afterwards. So yeah, it's good fun. It sounds weird saying problems going wrong in the game is fun, but it's just like quite a fun, fast-paced, high-risk environment. And you're just like, damn, let's go. So yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah. So I think you touched on earlier, you spoke about production. This is something that initially when we first spoke, it was one of the things that we discussed, was something that would be great to just chat about and we don't hear enough about. Is the difference between product and production. Like for me, so the way I've always seen it is that production is the when, and then the product defines the what and the why. And then you got to put these two together. But I can speak from my experience. I've gone into a few game companies where product didn't really exist before, and production would wear all these multiple hats on their head. And so the idea of product and production was to split that apart. What was your experience with kind of production?
Yeah, I mean, I've had quite a similar experience, but it's kind of the opposite, where product was the producer as well. All right. And so it's very weird. It's exactly what you said, right? Product is specifically known for the why and the what. Like, why are we doing what we're doing? How, like, what problem are we solving? What value is it creating? Whereas production are like the how are we going to make this vision you've got as product, and the when is it going to happen? Which release is it going in, etc., etc. Product and production, I feel like, are both quite many hands in many different pots, roles within a company. So your experience obviously was producers were also product managers. I've had the opposite experience where product managers were also producers. And that could be in lieu of like they didn't have a producer at the time, or they just didn't think they needed a producer, etc., etc. Yeah, my experience is like sometimes you kind of overlap, right? There's always going to be an overlap of what you do. And like with product, like I mentioned, you've got different hands in different pots. Like today I might be product manager / game designer. Tomorrow I might be product manager / data analyst. Like there's different ways of doing it. But there is a significant difference obviously between product and producers. So like for me as a product manager, I might be obsessing over a feature that's going to improve engagement or align with the monetization side of things. But then my counterpart and the producer, who you tend to work with very closely, they're literally like your twin. You're always talking to them. You're literally best friends. You have to be best friends. You're forced to be best friends. Yeah. And they're going to be figuring out what needs to happen that sprint to make that feature real. It's kind of a weird analogy I can kind of think of is like we're like co-pilots. So like I'm flying the plane and going, hey, I think we should go to, I don't know, Germany today.
That way.
Cool opportunity. Let's go that way. I think there's a cool opportunity that way. And then the producers listening.
Your co-pilots, you're pointing that way.
So I'm pointing in one direction and going, hey, that looks fun. There's some opportunity there. Let's go there. And then the production co-pilot is like, okay, let's make sure we get there and we don't crash and burn. Like that's their job, right? And I think, production and product need to work together very closely. The magic happens when you work together, like not when you're siloed separately and not when one person is doing it, right? If a producer is being a product manager, their mindset is more producer focused, right? So they're going to have something they make, but it could be soulless, or it could just not have the flair that a product manager could bring. But then it's the complete opposite as well. It's like if a product manager is acting as producer, you risk a whole mess of things happening because you don't know how to actively work properly as a producer. So it's a balance, right? Like you have yourself as a product, and then you have your counterpart in production, and you two are literally one entity that you need to fight your way together and get through things together. And I think that's really important.
It's almost as if the what and the when, you can't deal with both those things at the same time. Like you need to split them into their own kind of logical thinkings and reasons.
I mean, like me personally, like I've recently experienced when a producer left the company and moved on to do better things with their life. Good for them.
Yes.
I had to go from being a product manager to then a producer, but I couldn't, in all honesty, I couldn't fixate my time on both together. Like I had to focus on one or the other at the time. So then focusing on just being a producer to help out the team whilst we get a replacement sorted was like a big thing. And so, you can't definitely do both, because I can't think of like the whys and the whats at the same time and then going, okay, this is the why and the what, and then have to think about the when at the same time. It was always it had to be one or the other. And luckily we had a whole plan in place and it was all fine, but it's just one of those things that you can't do both at the same time for sure.
I completely echo that. I mean, my producer, basically I tell him like, these are all the things I'd love to do. And then I'd be like, okay, great. This is what we actually can do. And then he's fantastic because he always relays the decision back to me, which is great because I think in the decision making you can own it and you can explain that why and spend the time kind of getting that buy-in from stakeholders and really giving the reason. But he's just become so essential for me because I makes me feel that we're on course, that we're doing things on track, that he can explain to me if there are any issues that are going to happen in the future. He always gives me his recommendation, which I end up very often leaning on.
Taking,
so exactly. I don't know what I would do without kind of my producer on my team.
Because I'm fully just like, hey, we've got this idea, let's just put it in a release. And I'm like, that's it. We don't have to do anything more than that. I told you it needs to go in the release, it's going in the release. And then it's just like, producer goes, Roo, calm the hell down. Like, come on. Like,
he's like the parent, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're like my therapist essentially, and they just go, okay, no, calm down. We need to do this, this, and this first. And I'm like, oh, okay, didn't think about that. So yeah, you rely on production a lot because they are the people that help you deliver what you want, right? And so you need to take their recommendations into account. You can't just go, no, I'm not going to listen to you.
So let's like pivot a little bit. I want to learn more about the games that you work on. And from what I understand, Love and Pies, I think there are other ones, but these are merge games, right? Is that how they'd be classified? Yes. What are merge games for those listening? Because I know it's a huge kind of part of the mobile kind of audience. So
yeah, I mean, merge games, I think, is quite a young genre of games. We've obviously have like match games were a big sort of similar thing to merge games before, where match games you kind of match 3 items together and it's kind of like Candy Crush style things. And merge games came into play with sort of like Merge Dragons, Merge Mansion, etc. And essentially for people at home who don't know what merge games are, it's you have your little board and you have generators that generate these items that you need to then complete orders. And the way you then complete these orders is by putting 2 of these items together to make a next item, and then you put another 2 of those items together to make the same item, then you merge those 2 together to then make the one above. It's a whole mathematical complex thing going on. But the idea being is that the more you tap, the more you generate, the more you can then complete your orders and move on from there. And yeah, it's Love and Pies, like you said, it's a merge game. It's a merge 2 game. It's been out since, oh god, it's literally testing my knowledge now. I'm going to say 2021 off the top of my head. Now, anyone watching this in Trailmix is going to kill me because I've probably got this very wrong.
I was just trying to Google it for you.
I think it is 2020. I think it is 2021 because when I started, they just had the first year anniversary of the game going live.
Okay. And let me add to the merge, because I remember when I worked in mobile games, I was kind of researching about merge, and kind of the appeal, before kind of you'll tell me what the right answer is. Humans intuitively love making order out of chaos. Like, yes. They love cleaning, like when you start cleaning your room or you're kind of cleaning the kitchen and you get into that role and just love moving things into place. Is that kind of the driving force behind that genre?
Merge games, in my opinion, tap into that primal satisfaction that we all have to organize and, do things in a way that just helps us make our lives better. So like any games that have that primal satisfaction of organization is crazily good for me. I just love that sort of shit. But yeah, merge games are specifically targeted towards that satisfaction, right? They are, in my opinion, they are definitely, as I'm going to be very biased, Love and Pies is definitely one of the most visually satisfying games in the Merge 2 genre. Like, it's well known that every time we go talk to people and they're like, oh, you work on Love and Pies, that game, it looks amazing. Like, it's one of the biggest selling points of our games, and I love that it is. But like, it also is that, the progression feels tangible. It's under your control. And a lot of games, obviously, a lot of the progression can be out of your control. But like with Merge 2 games specifically, it's really easy to learn the systems and really easy to understand what you need to do, but then it's really hard to master, and that's the push that then gets people playing more, right? You start off easy and you go, oh, it's really simple. I just tap on the generator, merge these items together, service order, done. And then more and more things start coming into play as you build up and keep progressing through the levels. And it's just like, oh, now there's this event that's asking me to do this and also this. What do I need to do? What do I prioritize? And then that's when it starts going like, oh god, like where do I go? But it still gives people the sense of control, but also at the same time discovery.
Here we go. It's okay. We were getting. Let it go through. I was looking at Merge. It is a beautiful game, by the way. I was looking at just the images, and like the art style is incredible. So vibrant.
Our artists are great. They just hit the nail every time. Whenever we've got something we want to work on, and they go, yeah, here you go, here's some concepts, and I'm like, god damn, I wish I was this good. Like it's just amazing, and they're just so good at it. And it's one of the things. It's like if you have a visually satisfying game like Love and Pies, and you look at that and you go, damn, this is so much fun to look at, and then new things keep getting added and more kind of things happen, and like part of it is discovery, like new generators and new items and stuff, and then you find that final cake that's like gold or whatever, and you're like, god damn, that's so cool. Like it's really fun, and it keeps people engaged. You give players a sense of if you give them a sense of control, but then that discovery too, you're going to keep them engaged, and that's hopefully what Love and Pies does best for us.
So kind of from what I understand, you mentioned like Merge Mansion and all these other games. I remember kind of what I was looking into it in my research. Like it's a really dynamic genre. With Merge Mansion, it was like a story, right? So you'd complete kind of the weekly merge assignments or tasks, and then you get revealed what happens in this like murder mystery mansion like story. What is Love and Pies kind of angle to it, or is it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so one of our biggest things, and we love talking about this, is when the game was first going out and going live, and we're testing out the game. And I wasn't around at this point, so I might get some of these things wrong, but this is the general gist. Was that the storyline was not very similar to Merge Mansions. I think it was just very similar in terms of like that whole kind of mystery genre. Let's just, these things are happening, and this character called Amelia is going to go build a cafe. And it wasn't really working. And then we pivoted massively. We changed the story, and essentially the first thing you see is Amelia walking up to this cafe and it's being burnt down, right? And that is an instant hook that literally grabbed people and worked really well. So, our story narrative is like, you've had this cafe that's been in your family for so long. You've come back after having a divorce, and you've had a kid, and your husband cheated on you, and all these sort of like real world melodramatic. It's very like telenovela. That's what
like a soap opera, right?
Yeah, exactly. Your husband's left you. You had a child. He's divorced you. Cheated on you. Now your cafe's burnt down. All this melodramatic stuff's happening, and that really hooked people into the game. And from then, the narrative is just taking it, keep it going, and going one step further, where it's just like mystery after mystery after mystery of like things happening, and it keeps people engaged. It is literally a soap opera, because you read through the narrative of these games and you go, what's happening next? And then you have to progress. You need to serve orders. You need to collect that coins to then know what happens. It's like exactly waiting for a soap opera. You have to wait a week. It's like, I'm on a cliffhanger. Why the hell am I on a cliffhanger? Like, I need to know what happens. And that's what the narrative hooks do really well. Especially for all games, like Merge Mansion does it, our game does it, etc. So it's good. It's good fun.
That's fascinating, because just the storytelling aspect of it. So I didn't want to cut you off there, but
that's right.
The fact that you can tell a story through like a mobile game, where like maybe console developers or PC developers would scoff at like, oh, it's simplistic, but like, no, you're using certain in-game mechanics to then tell this narrative soap opera like story that like keeps people engaged and coming back.
It's really like, it's obviously a production question. Like, we can't do cutscenes in a mobile game. That's too expensive. That takes too much time and all that sort of stuff. And you can maybe get around with it if you have the time and money to do it. But, simplistic, sure, but it gets the point across. We're targeting people who are just doing this mobile games, right? When do you play them? You're on a travel, you're on the tube or the train, or you're at home just watching TV and you're playing alongside, right? So it needs to be quick, snappy, and just digestible content. And so doing story hooks like that, where the narrative is really simple. Like, let's, for example, make something up, that Amelia, our character, decides to have an affair, right? And so the last thing you read is, and she walks into his bedroom, whatever, right? And you're like, what? No, I need to know what happens, right?
Yeah.
And that hook just keeps people hooked. I think that's just really fun, and it is engaging. Like, I read the story sometimes and I'm like, man, this is so dramatic for no reason, but then I'm like, but I'm still intrigued to know what happened.
Oh yeah, I mean, you watch Grey's Anatomy and any of those like big shows, and it's all really dramatic. So it's fair game.
It works. It works for our audience, because we, as being product and working with product marketing and stuff, you do surveys and you understand who your players are, right? And you understand that they're people who like true crime, they like Grey's Anatomy, they like TV shows like that. And so, you tailor the story aspect to those kind of audiences to kind of keep them hooked.
So let me bring the conversation to more like of a contemporary thing that I was thinking about the other day, which is Netflix tried to make their own game studio, or at least when I say try, it's just because I haven't seen it really take off the way kind of they were hoping it would, and they've had a bit of some shuffles. Do you think part of kind of their strategy was looking at kind of this narrative element in gaming or in mobile games, and also kind of being able to combine these two worlds? What on the outlook, as someone who deals with like storytelling and kind of game development, what do you think they were trying to do? I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here, but
No, it's fine. I think for me, it's one aspect. Gamification of apps is a big thing now. I think the mobile gaming industry is so huge. There's so many different games out there, and you see it now more in just non-gaming apps. For example, Duolingo is the biggest one I can think of. When they introduced that streak feature, which is naturally a game specific feature, it massively blew up in the right direction for them. And so Netflix doing something like that, where, you know, traditionally it's just here is all of the movies and things you want to watch, and they have a lot of traffic into the app itself, but it's a way of going, how can we get these players to do more with the app that we've already got? And I think gamification is the biggest thing that they did and they tried to do. Personally, I don't use it, and I don't think I know anyone who uses it
Yeah.
because most of the games are readily available on the Play Store. So I would probably just play them from there. But I think they try to introduce gamification into Netflix to try and get more out of their audience, and that's my kind of stance on where it is and why they did those sort of things. And you see it now in loads of different games and loads of different games and loads of different apps where they're trying to introduce gamification features and trying to keep people hooked. And, you know, there are companies out there who are trying to use unconventional means to introduce gaming. I think there's I can't remember off the top of my head, but someone's using Line, the kind of like opposite of like what's opposite the competitor of like WhatsApp, mainly used in like Asia and stuff, to introduce gamification stuff on there, because people use Line all the time. Like, you're messaging your friends all the time, hey, whilst messaging someone, why not play a game? Like, you know. And so I think that's a big thing to it. I don't know if it did work for Netflix. I actually looked into it, but
Yeah.
I don't think it did it?
No, I'm sure they're working on it. I would have to do a bit more research, but I've always hearing that they've kind of reshuffled their org, or they're hiring someone new, or that it hasn't. This is based on me just going through my LinkedIn feed, so I'm no expert on this. But it was just something I was thinking. But just going back to, again, gamification, like it's I've heard this term for so long. Even when I started out my career, everyone was talking about gamification. You think about like Uber putting in the badges and like getting people to like work longer and harder because you're getting these badges, arbitrary badges, or they're just JPEGs, like little symbols.
Yeah, literally, it's vanity.
But what does that tap into?
Yeah, it taps into vanity for me.
Okay.
Especially in the apps that are non-game related, right? So let's take the Uber one, the badges, right? Apps like Uber and other things like it, like Duolingo, for example, you have friends, you have a community that's on there that you know, or that is a community that's widely shared. If I could have a badge that goes, hey, you were #1 on this thing today, and I could put that on my profile and people could see it, I'm fucking pressing that button as much as I can to do that, because I want to show off. It's a natural psychological thing for people. Like, not everyone, obviously, but like I would say the general consensus of people is that we like showing off and like having that our effort has been rewarded by something, and I can show off that reward and go, here you go, I got this badge for doing this cool thing. It's just a sense of progression. It's a sense of keeping you engaged, but it literally feeds into your ego in a sense, where it's just like, hey, Roo, well done, you were the top driver in London today, and I'd be like, fuck yeah, let's put that on my profile.
Awesome. Yeah. Like it's so interesting because, like, even like, for instance, I have another use case in my head. I have a Reddit profile through work where I kind of talk to players and just update them on kind of what we're doing and kind of what we're planning. I also get feedback. I talk to them directly, and like I see all these badges, and because like the subreddit for the game I play, sorry, for the game I work for, is massive. And it's like, well, I think it's like number 12 or number 13 and maybe a bit higher. But I have all these symbols, and I know like the dopamine hit I get when I'm like, it tells me, hey, you're on like day 5 of a streak of commenting on the top post. It's so weird because no one sees this badge. I only see it myself, but it's almost like I can ground it in, hey, I've done something, and here's a little symbol for proving it.
Yeah, it's just giving you something for your own progression that you've made. Like, it's going, you know, congratulations, you've done something really cool. Here's a badge to reward yourself. It's just rewarding yourself for what you're doing. It's the same with like Duolingo streaks, right? Is people obviously see your streaks and they know what streak you're kind of on at the time. But that one day you miss that streak, you get really pissed off. Well, I do anyway. I get really pissed off at myself because I'm like, shit, I forgot to do my streak.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I've spent 250 days doing this thing and I've now just lost it. But then the opportunity for me to then just put some gems on it and go, okay, you can have it back. It's just like, yeah, I'm going to do that because I don't want all my effort to be wasted. It's wasted effort. And that's something that you can tap into a lot with people, because you put something massively, you put your own time and effort into something and it then ends being shit. It feels so bad. So, you know, to tie in onto that psychology of people and go, you know, you put so much effort in, here's something for that. It's just rewarded effort. It's just, it's powerful, and it makes people feel good. Like you said, it's a dopamine hit. People feel happy after doing that, having that happen to them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like such a an intuitive thing that happens for humans. Like I can go through any game, like a cosmetic achievement in like an MMORPG,
Honestly,
or like you change
honestly,
like your
yeah.
staff is just a stick, but it gets like instead of a green orb, it's pink now,
Yeah,
and
it's like the same with
like,
any games
whoa,
where you buy
yeah,
cosmetics, right? Even though it's a third person, not third, but first person shooter, for example, like Overwatch or
yeah.
Apex Legends, right? You have all these skins that you do not see because you do not
You
see them
don't,
on
yeah.
your screen. You're showing off for other people who can see you and they go, God damn, this player must be good because they've got this golden gun or this thing, right? So it just feeds into that necessary like want for just showing off, in my opinion.
And it's such a big industry. Like I think of like League of Legends. Like they are a free
Yeah.
to play game. They stopped monetizing on champions, and now it's all about those skins. Which I am. You can ask my close friends, which I play with. I am a big buyer of skins. I love all the. I'm a big
Oh
Teemo
yeah,
player. I
same.
got all the Teemo
I
skins, and it's just hard. And I think about it sometimes. Like no, this makes it enjoyable, but like, but why? And it's just like then you
because it's
look.
for you. Because it's
It's
for you. That's why. Because you have it. It's the same with me. Like I play these games and I buy all these skins and cosmetics because I'm like, God damn, that is such a gorgeous piece of work that I just want to have and own. And then at the end of the day, people are like, why did you buy that? You don't even see it. And I'm like, yeah, but I just know it. I've got it on. I know that it's on right now. And people are looking at me and going, damn, that's so cool.
honestly, it's such an interesting thing that we go for that. So let's pivot a little bit. I kind of want to learn more about just you kind of leading a team, or at least working with a team, and kind of just what are the aspects of that when it comes to like leading a team in Trailmix or for Love and Pies? Like,
Yeah. So currently I'm sort of like de facto leading the live ops side
yeah,
of things at Love and Pies.
yeah,
And it's been about how long now? Probably like 6, 7 months doing that. And it's been quite a learning curve, going from sort of just like quintessential working in product to just start to do like help out the teams and stuff, and then now going into like leading this whole kind of live ops aspect, which
and
is
then
going to be
what do we
very
mean by
different.
live ops? Sorry, I didn't want to
Yeah,
cut you
so
off. Yeah,
no, so like live ops is essentially live operations within the game. So this could be anything from event management to CRM management to marketing to event creation, monetization, etc. It's a whole kind of going, and it's a very reactive department, I would say. Like you react to what's happening in the game, you understand what's happening. It's like you could go, yesterday was a bit rubbish in terms of monetization. Maybe we should do something today to help boost that for us in business. And you're kind of tying a lot of it to business goals and how you want things to happen. But a lot of it from specific Love and Pies is getting people engaged into the game. How do we get them engaged? What can we do to tie them more into the core loop, to gauge them more with that core loop, and then do more, and then hopefully inevitably spend more? And that's the kind of thing. So leading up that live ops team has been great. Like, been working with a great set of people, and it's been about, I had this vision of what we wanted to do for the live ops within Love and Pies, and I'm glad that they're there helping me shape that vision. And it's less more my vision, it's now our vision as a team. And also with it is I have a lot of experience to rely on, and it's not a case of like I have to do everything. What I kind of want to do and what I think leading means for a team is specifically getting out of the way, throw my pen everywhere, getting out of the way of people when they're flourishing, right? Like giving them something to go, here, can you just please take this part away from me, own it, do what you want with
yes.
it. Let's just keep each other in the loop and let's go with it. And and that's also really good. It's a good way of like mentoring people and like junior team members who join. It's like you give them something to own, which is great because they feel like, wow, I've got something that's mine and it's really important to me, and like they want to strive to do well. But it's also letting them then fail safely. And if they do fail safely, they're in an aspect where I can be there to help mentor them or go, hey, okay, this went wrong. So what can we do to probably change this up? Celebrating wins is obviously a big thing, but then showing that and tying it to sort of like player impact. Like say if someone's like put on the socials like, oh my God, I really love this event. It was really nice and like really fun, blah, blah, blah. And showing that to someone on the team and being like, hey, look, your work has done this for someone. It's just nice. And that kind of
Absolutely.
helps upskill them, but also mentor them in a nice way, and also just make them feel good about themselves. Like,
Yeah.
it's a good motivator. That's what I'm trying to get to.
I could not agree more. You sound like a great leader first and foremost. But the second thing I would say is that we talked earlier about product management having your hands in lots of baskets. And I think a lot of like the logical step would be then you have to control everything, because in order to run kind of a tight ship, you have to make sure that all these kind of moving functional parts are coordinated together. But quite the opposite. Like when you're leading a team, you really want to be able to give people the space to own their craft, to own their line of work, to then
for sure.
so they can take the decisions. And obviously they can come to you and say, look, I've done this, this, and that, but it makes your life easier instead of having to control everything. And I think that's something that I think it makes the difference between a good product manager and a bad one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I also agree with that. Like, when, for example, like working in a startup, you might not have a big enough team to do that. And yes, a product manager then has to be many hands, many pots, right? And so that's when it's like, okay, you're doing everything at once. But then as soon as you have a team that help you out, you need to rely on that experience. You need to rely on their knowledge base and what they know about things. So yeah, sure, I'll still have my hands in, like, for example, a UX product designer, for example, and go, okay, we'll talk about this product design thing. But they are the discipline experienced person. So why do I need to tell them what to do when they should be saying, hey, Roo, maybe we should be doing this instead? Great. Let's talk about it. Let's understand why. And then let's probably do your idea, because 9 times out of 10, I'm probably going to agree with you. So I think that's the best way it needs to be. And I think a lot of times, especially people who are leaders or managers, people hate being micromanaged, right? And I think that's a general consensus. And sometimes it's unavoidable. It's just how a person is, and you can't help that. And I get it. There's a lot of different ways around it. But, the best way for especially someone who's like helping to lead a team or like managing people is like just be there for them, let them listen to them, understand where that they are the person with the most experience in this discipline, and just utilize them in the best way you possibly can. Like, I'm not going to go to our game designer and be like, hey, I'm just going to do your job for you. Like, no, I'm going to be like, hey, we've got this idea, let's talk about it, let's figure out what we need to do, and help me help you, essentially. And that's just the best way to do it. It also just means it frees up loads of my time.
Yeah, absolutely. You also mentioned kind of bearing the torch. Like, no, you didn't say that specifically, but you talked about a vision and being able to share with your team kind of what the vision is. Is that the most important thing for a product manager to do? Like, just being able to give people a vision and like, what is the purpose of what we're trying to do, and then run with that, and then take the decisions that you need to take in your individual teams. Would you agree?
No, for sure. I would definitely agree with that. I think communication is a massive thing product managers need to be better at. It is, and I have done this before where I've not communicated things properly or not communicated to the team why we're doing these things, etc. And it creates an environment of not distrust, but just a bit of like, why are we doing this? I don't understand. This is not fun or whatever. And with the kind of live ops side of things, bringing them all in a lot earlier and going, hey, I have this idea. Let's talk about what this idea means for all of us, and etc. And it gives them a sense of purpose. It gives them something to look forward to, but then also allows them to still be in the loop to understand why we're doing this, to understand the business goals, to understand the player goals, to understand every discipline's goal of what they need to do. And I think that's the best way around it. The more communicative you are, the more you explain. And sometimes I think people just don't understand. There's been a few times where people in the art team have been like, hey, Roo, I don't really understand this metric or what this is happening and stuff like that. And it just gives, I think it also fosters then a sense of community within the team to not feel scared to ask the question of like, hey, Roo, what does ARPU mean or ARPDAU mean, and things like that. And then they can go, oh, okay, this is what it's going to change, and they'll understand it better so that, later down the line, they'll know what the next step is or what they need to then do next.
Yes.
And I just like having that communicative ability, and I think that's just the best thing that I've improved within myself as well, to help out with the live ops side of things.
What I tell everyone who joins like a new role, you have 6 months to ask all the questions you want. Just go for it. Like, never be afraid. Even new PMs coming into the role, ask questions that if you're afraid it's a stupid question, just ask it once and just get that answer. And not only that, it's going to help. If I'm asking what I think is a stupid question to my fellow engineer, that'll actually show that I'm interested in learning. And so that creates a camaraderie. And it's like, hey,
yeah, for sure. Like the biggest thing I realized within myself is when I first started in the gaming industry was that I'm way too, not shy, but just way too reserved to just think that I look dumb. Right. Yeah. And it's just like, because I started an industry where people around me have been in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years. And I'm sat there, I'm just like, I disagree with this, but this person knows this shit so much better than me. I shouldn't disagree with it. They probably just know, and I should just go along with it. And, that's happened a few times. And then when I started moving into product, I then just realized, I was like, you know what? I don't give a shit. I'm just going to say my disagreement. If I disagree with it, I'm going to disagree with it. And then we can understand why I disagree with it. And that's the biggest thing I see sort of change in myself. And that made me like a better product manager, was like, asking questions, ask the dumb questions. It doesn't matter, right? If you don't know, you don't know, and no one's gonna laugh at you and point at you like it's school, because that's where it stems from. It's like asking dumb questions in school. Some kids can be like, "Ha, you're dumb." But at work, it's like, oh no, you didn't know this? Okay, cool. Let me just explain to you what this means. And it's just a safer environment in that
Who
sense.
knows how many bad decisions were made in different companies because no one wanted to
No one
challenge
stood
or
up.
ask a question, right?
Exactly that. And there's been times where I wish I did stand up and say, hey, I don't think we should be doing this, but then, people higher up or whatever, I'm just like, you can't talk to them that way or whatever it is. It's a bit shit, but that's the biggest thing I would say, like, is just for junior people or people who want to get into those kind of roles, or especially these kind of product roles, is you always need to be asking questions. You always need to be asking the dumb questions sometimes. I don't mind looking dumb. It's fine.
Yeah, likewise. I was gonna say one of my superpowers. I genuinely don't care too much about looking dumb. I'll ask like the question as if I'm a player. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. Explain it like I'm a 5-year-old, and that always works because it's like, okay, let's take a step back and try to unpack this in a way that kind of is digestible.
The more simpler you make something, the actually easier to understand, and the easier it is to find them problems sometimes. Like, if it's something's really complicated, you get lost in the complexity of something. But then if something's dumbed down to a 5-year-old and go, people press this and this happens, you go, well, that doesn't make sense, because it's just more simpler for understanding.
So you mentioned higher ups. What do you look for in like a manager or a leader right now in this point of your career?
Time for me, right? A big thing, I think, is, I wouldn't say like lacking in managers I've had. My managers have always been really good and really supportive, and I've actually really appreciated that greatly. But the big thing I hear from others and from what they need from their kind of style is like, I'm a mid-level person or a junior person in the team. I want to grow. My career is important to me. I want to be able to get to a position that I'm happy with, or the goal of my life is to become product director or whatever it could be. Right? It's have the time for me to help me achieve that dream. And that's what I think the biggest thing is being as a manager is just being there for your team, because they rely on you, right? They need your opinions, they need your support. If you're not there for them, you're too busy, your calendar's packed, etc., like, that's not great. That means you're putting less focus into people who rely on you. It's like, this is a really weird analogy. It's like you've got kids, right? If you're not there for your kids, they're probably just going to do their own thing and just not be the people you want them to be. But if you're there for your kids, they're going to be the people you want them to be. And so if you can't do that as a manager, or if you can do that as a manager, that's just the best thing. And that's what my managers have always done for me. And it's been really great for me, specifically going from my career, like from when I started as a graduate to where I am now. It's all been because of my managers.
I couldn't agree more. So I wanted to move now. This is something that I've also spoken about in class. I usually teach this towards the end of the course, but how there's obviously a big advent of LLMs and ChatGPT becoming just more commonplace in the workplace. And kind of what I've discussed is that right now, employers and employees don't really talk about ChatGPT. Like, unless the employer has like ingratiated ChatGPT into some kind of co-pilot system and that everyone's using, what I'm seeing is a lot of people just doing it like in a hidden way. Like, they're not talking about it, or they're saying they're using it, or they're saying they're not using it, but they are, or maybe they're too afraid to deal with it. How has kind of ChatGPT kind of affected your workflow, and how have you seen it being used, kind of, if you can talk about it, of course,
no,
kind of in your company?
Do not mind talking about it. I mean, obviously there is the general trend right now and I think a lot of it comes from the creative side of industries, where the ChatGPT and AI is bad. And I get it. I understand, it can be taking over people's roles and things like that. But ignoring that side of things, for me, and especially in Trailmix, ChatGPT is used so much. Like, we thoroughly encourage people to use it, because for me, I'm just going to talk about myself. I don't know how I use it for others, but like for me specifically, it's like having an intern or like an assistant that I can just talk to and I can just chat shit at and go, hey, is this a good idea? What does it mean if I do this? What if it does this and this? And I use it to like brainstorm. If I'm stuck on like a spec that I'm just like, oh God, where do I want to go from here? Does this make sense? I just talk to ChatGPT and go, hey, I'm making this idea. Does this make sense? They'd be like, hell no, you're stupid. Change it to be this. And it's like, yeah, okay, perfect. And it just checks my thinking. And it's like, I think the main concern for people about ChatGPT is that they use it to make decisions. And it's like, I don't use ChatGPT to make decisions. If it tells me to change something, I'll be like, okay, maybe I should change to this, but I'll discuss it with someone. I will utilize the knowledge it's given me and go, okay, maybe we should talk about this, and maybe it can be an open question for a PRD or whatever. But it just supercharges my work, right? It gets my work done faster. I'm going through things quicker. I'm less blocked by having to write a 10-page spec in a week, it takes me now a day because I can use ChatGPT to kind of reorganize my thoughts, and I can give it all the bullet points I have. I'm not a very good writer in just general life. Like, I was shit at English in exams, and my partner says I'm really, really bad at using commas. So it's like, okay, great. My grammar is amazing. So using something like ChatGPT is great for me because I can give it the bullet points of my thought and go, hey, I want to do this feature that does this, 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 this. And I go, can you write this in a spec format that's understandable in the language that we use at Trailmix, for example? And it's great. It's great for me. And then I just go over it and I just update it and edit it and change it to how it fits me better. Because obviously ChatGPT doesn't get everything right. It can just makes this mistake or whatever. So it's not a good thing to utilize and just do and go, here you go, done. But yeah, it's definitely good. I mean, we all have pro accounts, which is amazing. So we get more out of it than we do as just a free user. But what I've noticed recently is ChatGPT has started learning more about who I am. And I had never told it to start using my name, and it's now started using my name. And I'm like, what's happening? I'm like,
it's like
crazy.
agent incoming, right?
I know. And so it's been really good because it now knows like what I do, what my role kind of is, and like what the kind of things I usually think about. So it's learned about who I am and my thought processes. And it's really great to just have a conversation. And also the little live like talk feature where you can talk to it.
Oh yeah,
So good.
so cool.
So good. Like if I'm practicing for like a presentation or something or whatever it might be, if I use that, it would be like, oh, hey, Roo, don't maybe say an R 15 times in that sentence. I'm like, great. Okay, I didn't notice that, but yeah, okay, it's fine.
It's such an incredible tool. For me, the benefit is really you have more space to think. Rather than doing the legwork of writing a whole PRD document, it can give you it can cut 1 hour of your time just by giving you like the template. It can fill in most of the details, and then you just have to edit through it and just add the stuff that you think is correct or more pertinent. And all the other time you could spend thinking about other things, or maybe you don't even have to spend it thinking about work, and you can improve your work-life balance. Like it's a win across the board.
Yeah, because there's like my day is filled with either meetings or other. And that's the one big thing about being product. You're in loads of meetings.
Yeah, loads of meetings.
And so my day, I don't want to spend half my time that I'm free between meetings then having to think about writing a spec. If I can just think about the key points I want for a spec or a PRD, add that to ChatGPT and go, hey, can you just write this in the format that I usually do for a PRD? And it does it for me. I check it over, make sure nothing's missing, update anything that is missing, etc., and gone, and it's done. It just saves mountains of time and work and gives me the more time to focus on the bigger things. Like, what's the next big thing on the roadmap we need to figure out? What's this thing? What's that thing, etc. And that is it's just great. I love it. I use it in my personal life as well. Like I literally just use it every day and just go, hey, can you write this email to my mortgage advisor, for example, and be like, I really need this to be happening, please, thanks. And it just writes it in a great way. And I'm like, thank you, send.
It's a game changer. So I want to go more on personal. What would be some advice you would give to yourself, younger Roo, kind of right coming out of university, maybe doesn't know what's in store for him? What advice would you give him when he's looking at
the first thing is don't silo yourself. I siloed myself because growing up, exams, GCSEs, A levels, I was always really good at science, and then it's back again. I gotta love it. And yeah, like doing science at uni was the logical step. It was what I siloed myself into doing, and doing science for that many years, and then doing my masters and going, I don't even like science actually that much. I don't even want to do it as a job. Like it was a weird experience. But even if you do silo yourself, there is obviously like my experience I had. I didn't actually end up doing anything with the science. I then ended up working in games. So I'd say the first thing is like be open to things. But then the second thing I'd say is what I mentioned earlier is just ask dumb questions. Just speak up. Don't worry about looking stupid. They've hired you for a reason. They think you're good at what you do. Asking a dumb question is not going to make them fight. That's what my train of thought was always when I did that. So yeah, I think ask all the dumb questions and just don't silo yourself. Like open yourself up to new opportunities. Don't just think, oh, I'm good at one thing. You actually could be good at loads of different things.
What does gaming need now more than ever?
Young people. I think specifically in mobile gaming, and it's happening quite a lot, but I think people young.
Let him drill through. He's gonna do one drill.
Sometimes I feel like they're gonna drill through the wall every second, and there's gonna be a face. All right, I'll be like, what have we done?
Hi there.
Hi.
No, so let's go back. So what does gaming need now more than ever?
I think young people.
Yeah.
It's when I was growing up, and I think it's still the same now, is that people don't think gaming is a career. Like to working in games as a career. They just think of, yeah, there's some developers who make a game and they just sell it. That's it. But there's a load of different things you can do in gaming. And I think young people and, you know, more and more people are getting into gaming, and the majority of those, I would say, are people under the age of 35. And like, they are the people who game the most, are on their phones the most. We're in a generation of kids now who technology is their literal go-to thing that they always do. No longer do they go outside and play games.
No.
It's not like we used to.
They got this.
They've got that, and that is their main source of entertainment and media. So I think getting younger people into games is important. They bring a fresh sense of perspective, especially for their age group. And I think sometimes we do some maybe bigger companies. They do. There we go.
Yeah.
So for bigger companies, there's a lot of, I would say, older to middle-aged people. And, you know, it's not saying that they don't know what they're talking about in games, but they might be out of touch with the generation that the games are targeting towards. And so bringing younger people, I think, definitely is a big thing. And I think it should start at school. Like, there's an opportunity to talk to teenagers who are then going to be going to do their university degrees or going in to do their A-levels, to then kind of talk to them and be like, hey, do you like games? Do you want to do this, and this in games? And kind of get them focused towards something. And I think one of the other big things I'd like to see change in games is having more internships for people. It's not very well documented, in my opinion, that there are many internships. Sure, some of the bigger companies, I think like Supercell definitely does them and stuff like that, which is great because it gets those younger people into and understanding different roles and aspects of gaming. But I would love to see all aspects of gaming have internships. Bring those young people in, get them excited about a career in gaming, because we are a big industry and it's one of the biggest industries.
Bigger than music and streaming combined.
Exactly, right? And it's like, why are we not utilizing a whole range of audiences and people that we know about? And that's yeah, I think.
I couldn't agree. Well, Roo, thank you so much for joining and being my first guest on this podcast. It's been a pleasure to speak to you.
It's been very fun. I hope it's not been rambly as I think it might have been.
Not at all. Not at all. And to the drill technician, thank you for being the first audience member. All you just said is bye. All right. Bye then.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks. See you later.